Hey guys, welcome back to the Mountain Breakdowns. Today we're going to be going over a Who's Number One match from the most recent Who's Number One. It's going to be featuring Andrew Tackett versus Troy Russell. Andrew Tackett is a pretty dynamic player. He's known for moving around, creating a lot of movement, having a pretty unyielding gas tank. Troy had a recent victory using leg locks. He's a new arrival to Who's Number One, but I'd say that doesn't necessarily count him out. I think that Andrew obviously is the one coming in as the favorite with more experience, but in recent years I've been able to see Andrew get caught with knee bars from people who were pretty unsuspecting at the time. So who knows, maybe he could get some sort of a leg lock configuration, given that's what I've seen Andrew actually get beat by previously, but I'm also sure that Andrew's made plenty of adjustments since then to correct that weakness in his game. So when I have seen him lose otherwise, it's usually been in very long, drawn-out matches, so I believe that would have to be the goal for Troy here. So looking at this match, immediately they both decide to stay standing. Troy doesn't do any sort of pulling or anything, so it looks like he wants to stand up. Andrew's pretty experienced with stand-up, but let's focus on the hand fighting here, what we can watch with the details. So we begin to see that Andrew's playing pretty heavy on the head here. Just kind of feeling out Troy at this moment. It looks like Troy's trying to go for some sort of a Russian tie, but he's still pretty high up and perhaps kind of exposing his legs. But right now you can kind of see Andrew's more so kind of feeling out the situation. Goes with this little throw by to see how his reactions go. He's really just kind of like experimenting and figuring him out. You can see that Andrew's not too eager to get into anything. But watch the feints that he begins to do. He starts essentially pestering the head, going low with the feint. I think he's going to pester the head again. See how he goes there, pester the head, and he goes in, threatening the legs. He's seeing all his exaggerations, going back and forth here, back and forth. And I'd say Troy's not maintaining very good lead hand discipline at this point because he's so freely bringing his hands up and down, and that's what opens him up to the shot right here. Andrew's just done a really good job of just keeping constant pressure at a distance by just feinting and shooting essentially head taps and going in, and then ultimately getting the final shot that continues the match here. He goes and he climbs up the back. You can see he has a weak whizzer, so he's able to go straight to the back, where I think he tries to go into the knee bar roll through as kind of his hope. Maybe that was his original intention with using standing, as he thought he could roll into a knee bar like some of the examples I showed previously. But see, unfortunately, that allows him to get his body triangle at this point, which is where I've seen Andrew win a lot of his matches. He's smaller, but he has surprisingly long legs for his size, which allows him to have pretty great amount of control. So some things I would have wanted to see on behalf of Troy to maybe help discourage this back take or to protect himself. You can see that he's sprawling here, but he's really just not kicking his legs back enough, and I'd want to really dig in that overhook, turning it into a strong whizzer, protect him from getting his back taken, maybe going to some uchimatas or different types of variations of judo throws. From here, when he tries to go through this like cross ashi entrance or knee bar entrance or any sort of leg lock entrance typically, I would have wanted to see him more so try to control the inside leg. You can't really see it just because of the camera work, but you'll see if he keeps rolling through, his other arm, which would be his left arm, doesn't have control of the desired knee bar leg. At this point, probably would have been a better chance or a better opportunity if he just Granby rolled out of this. One last thing I'll add is in this little part of the sequence where he does actually manage to get his spine off-center to his chest, so that does give him a chance to get out. I would have wanted to see his right elbow try to get in front of the chest more aggressively as he seeks to get his hips out to the mat. Maybe at least he could have landed in close guard or re-guarded or something. So continuing with the match, getting into the inevitable finish here. You see a series of hand fighting. Troy does a pretty good job controlling at least the wrists and keeping it in front of his chest and not keeping the battle over his shoulders. He's keeping it behind, doing everything, but he's not really turning his hips here. He's not really doing anything to get out of it. He's just trying to not get subbed at this point. Maybe he's trying to walk his legs out, but it's still pretty early in the match. You can't really rely on a lot of these tactics, which typically would be reliant on slipperiness or possibly the opponent being more fatigued than they currently would be. This is the first 2 minutes of the match still, so it's pretty unfortunate. A lot of time the legs are still pretty grippy at this point. From this cross-gripping series, you see that Andrew's able to capture the top left arm here, which is essentially allowing him to punch in a single-arm strangle. He's keeping the legs crossed, keeping everything in, but watch his hands here. He's able to get underneath the neck using a series of arm switches. At this point, he's not really underneath the neck. He's trying to do a mandible strangle. I do think that Troy, got caught and everything there, but I still think that there were some things he could have done to maybe get out of that ahead of time or during the strangle itself. But some final feedback to essentially what Troy could have done better here. He does have his arm trapped here, but usually with that top elbow, his left elbow here, he might be able to still swim it out. It's not necessarily a high percentage success rate, but it's still something he could have done. I think that maybe initially he could have done a better job kind of cross gripping the wrist, so each, the right hand goes to your opponent's left hand and vice versa. A lot of that could have discouraged and given him time to switch his hips out. I'm also going to offer a slight criticism of the submission here. It's obviously effective. It totally probably sucked to be in, but I definitely think that Troy could have maybe put his knuckles underneath the elbow a bit more and maybe raised it to kind of like displace some of the pressure that was being placed on his jaw. Also it's a pretty shallow hand, his top left hand here, so in classic that's more like an MMA thing. But I still think that he could have kept moving it, and you'll see if you refer back to it, he was able to get his top arm out, so it meant that there was a little bit of slippage. So maybe if he just was ready for it, I would have been pushing up on the elbow. Again, it probably sucked a lot, pretty painful to be in these positions. The mandible is effective, and there could have been a strangle, but this is just some helpful feedback, I think, for anybody that gets caught in this position. There are still things you can do a lot of the time that just might work. So congratulations, Andrew Tackett. Well-deserved win, really clean, good set of wrestling that led into a final strangle and back take. Andrew has an extremely dynamic game. He's one of the up-and-coming guys. He's only 20 years old, so really excited to see where he goes in the future. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you liked the video. There'll be more coming out each week. Watch for my shorts and other highlights. You can go to my Instagram at Abraham the Mountain. If you want to see weekly Wipeout Wednesdays and Fixed Jits Fridays, where I help people get better at jiu-jitsu. Consider subscribing, like the video, comment below if you got any feedback or anything you'd like to see for the future, or maybe a match you'd like to see me do a breakdown, from in the near future, or possibly the recent past, or even, an older match. Let me know. Look forward to seeing you guys next week.